How are you?
I'm doing well, guys. Thank you for having me. Good morning. Sorry for the little technical difficulty here, but glad
Nah,
to be up and running. Glad to see you.
great. Glad to see you. We love visiting with our Rothman docs. You guys are doing God's work, healing us, keeping us
Well,
doing what we
thanks,
love.
man.
You know.
We're trying. Like I tell people all the time, I'm happy to see your name on the score sheet instead of my schedule. Um, but if you need us, we're here.
So the new AD at Penn Charter is right here. So I'm sure
Congratulations on your
Thank you.
position.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
you guys at some point you should meet off air.
Yeah.
One of the things that I love, Doc, is I'm the father of two young athletes,
Yeah.
and that's part of your passion, which is when you're talking about young athletes and injury prevention, and it's so different at this age. Like my little one, who's going through puberty, just started that process. The voice is just starting to change, right? He's going through a growth spurt, but that's also a dangerous part because that's when you're growing, that's when injuries can happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And we see injuries in young athletes happen around the time of growth spurts and some of those kind of changes. Bones in younger athletes that are, skeletally immature, right? Meaning they just haven't finished growing yet, are kind of the weakest point in the chain. So young athletes will tend to get more bony injuries, whereas, the more seasoned athletes like us, like we'll get more ligament tendon things that'll happen, and because bones tend to grow faster than a lot of, these young athletes, muscles and tendons can stretch out to keep up with it, it puts some of those areas at higher risk for injury.
What can you do? You know, it's one of the club team. I know you were with the union too, and I think it was Man United. They have their academy,
Mhm.
and they shut down their young academy players when they're going through a spurt because they're all monitored, and they usually shut their athlete down for when I guess when you go through a growth spurt, it happens over a finite period of time. Is that you grow in those spurts, which is 20 to 30 days?
Yeah. Yeah, it can be weeks. Sometimes it can be longer. It can be even over a period of a couple months. But yeah, and it can be almost like misleading in a sense because, as a young athlete, you're thinking, all right, well, I'm getting taller, I'm getting stronger, I'm gaining some height, I'm gaining some size. But that's when you're at really, your most vulnerable. But, they don't really that thought doesn't really dawn on them the way, like it kind of makes sense to us as, more, mature, learned,
Yeah.
adults.
Well,
Um,
that's why I thought Man United was fascinating. That they're big sports science in young athletes and shutting them down. Like, hey, listen, we're going to shut you down, and then we're going to ease you back in.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. There's the danger obviously with doing, too much at any given point in time, but especially around those periods of increased and rapid growth.
What's your best? You talk about prevention. When we think
Mhm.
about prevention, what is your mantra when it comes to that?
So there's the old saying, right? Like ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. But not all prevention is the same, right? So you try and educate and inform people to keep them from getting hurt in the first place. So like the conversation we're having now, we can have with parents and athletes and athletic directors, right? To kind of put this seed, plant it so that it kind of comes to fruition and these kind of facts are understood. But then you also have your secondary prevention, which, okay, well, if you have a kiddo who does get an injury, especially around a time of growth, like understanding, okay, this is the injury, this is how you recover, this is how we get you back, but how do we keep you from getting hurt again, right? So kind of reinforcing some of those things that we're trying to teach and instill so that, again, right, they don't have to come back, they don't have to keep missing time, they don't have to keep missing out on the things they like to do.
Yeah, and one of the things I see all the time with kids is, especially baseball, is just arm issues because there's no off season anymore. Like you're playing fall ball. It's ridiculous. Like our
Yeah,
tournament schedules, little league and travel, and a lot of kids are developing little league arm.
And
right.
they're throwing 12 months a year, and there used to be a big, there was breaks,
Yeah,
right? Different
Yeah.
seasons for breaks. Now that's kind of going to the
right.
wayside, and that just wears you down.
And I remember growing up, like, I'll show my age a little bit here, but like I'm 40. Like growing up, there wasn't, club teams that were playing year
No.
round. Like in the fall, you played soccer or football. In the winter, you played basketball or you wrestled or you ran track. In the spring, you played baseball or lacrosse. So,
Yeah.
we were getting a lot of activity, a lot of strengthening, a lot of skill development, but it was all different skills because it was all across, different types of activity. And yeah, you worry about, people who are doing too much of the same kind of things year round, no break, no like no varying of the type or intensity of activity they're doing. A couple of years ago there was a statistic that 31 of the 32 first round NFL draft picks were multi-sport athletes in high school. And I
Well,
forget what year
insane.
it was, but it's within the last few years. And a lot of that, skill, physical development, strength, speed, right? Like, you can only get so much from one sport, and what you're getting from other sports and other activities are kind of supplementing that,
Yeah,
So it's,
but here's the issue, right? Because everybody says it. Guys like Daniel say it that we want you to play multiple sports. College
yeah,
guys will say it, except there is such a pressure on choosing
yeah,
Well,
On what?
it's a
Oh,
choosing
choose what?
a one path.
The big thing is because there's money in it, right? To lock you in, right? So there's a lot of that training aspect locks you in, right? And then I think the kids who are naturally great athletes do other things, and it's the other kids like, oh, I got to catch up, so I have to do this year round, right? Which it's a misleading. It's not really how you see it. It's you should be developing yourself and doing a little bit on the side, but also playing another sport, right? It helps you grow and develop, like Doc said. Like it really helps your bones and it makes you stronger. And opposed to just doing the same repetition over and over, you're gonna blow out your arm, right? So it's a
yeah,
lot of it misconception is the trainers, I believe, because there's money in it. So people are
Yeah,
pushing you. Oh, you got to do it. You got to do it. And parents are just misled, and it's just
So
information that we got to give out.
I'm not in this world, but so if you're on a baseball team during the baseball season and you're good, and just say you want to play football or basketball in the fall, that team is still playing baseball. If you go back, will you kind of be
so
penalized for not playing with them
you,
throughout the year?
yeah. So here's the deal. Like we're sitting in that spot. So my son plays travel ball, Doc, and he's the little league. We got the little league going on with the All Stars, and the travel baseball tournament's still happening. Well, football's around the corner, and my son is a quarterback, right?
yeah,
So this is a big year for him for baseball because they moved to the big field. So they
yeah,
moved to the big field in the fall.
Hmm.
So like I don't know, I gotta have a conversation. Thankfully, Coach Jim is a good coach, but I gotta have this conversation where it's like, dude, like we'll try to make some tournaments, but like he's got to focus. He's the quarterback. Like he's got to focus on his. He got practice and a walkthrough 6 days a week.
But also throwing a football is a different movement, right? And will make
Yeah.
your arm stronger, and it will make him a better pitcher in the long run. He might have when he first gets back, there might be an adjustment because he's not been there all the time. But like long term, it's a no brainer that he should do both, and it'll make him better, right?
Yeah, it just
People are just in the
scares me
moment. People are just
because
too locked in the
yeah,
moment. They're not
because
thinking down the road.
I've seen it where kids are being held. It goes against them because they're playing another
Mm.
sport. It's a shame.
yeah,
Doc, I,
yeah,
I, I gotta tell you, I talked to you all day, man. You're fantastic,
Can I
buddy.
ask them one last question?
Yeah,
Because I'm an old
please.
head.
yeah,
We usually have like bone people on. You do a lot of musculoskeletal.
yeah.
There's so many ligament and tendon injuries that people our age as we get older. What's the best thing we can do for that? Just stretch? Can we stretch the ligaments and tendons?
Yeah. So you can, right? So tendons are the connection between a muscle and a bone, right? So it's the actual part where, like you take, for example, like your calf, right? Your calf muscle comes down back of the leg, becomes the Achilles, and the Achilles tendon is what connects it to the heel. So yeah, you can definitely stretch out tendons. You don't want to stretch out ligaments too much because then that can be bad. Then you get ligament looseness. But yeah, stretching is a big one, right? Varying activity, so we're talking about, doing different types of activity, sports, things like that to keep our young athletes healthy and limit injury. We could do the same thing for us, you know. So whether it's, you know, a couple days a week you're hitting the gym and you're lifting, and then maybe you're biking, or now that it's summer, swimming, now that pools and stuff are open. You know, pickleball, obviously, that's a big one, right? Everyone's playing pickleball now. You know, people are still doing pickup basketball and softball, right? So, you know, staying active, right? Motion is medicine. So,
Nice.
you know,
That's
There you
great.
go.
Doc.
That's nice.
Motion is
remaining
medicine.
You better
active,
trademark that, Doc.
yeah. I wish I was clever enough to come up with that on my own, but
Put on a T-shirt.
pretty
Man.
sure it's already out there, trademarked. You know, but doing all kinds of varied sort of stuff,
Okay.
you know, things like that, and not just strengthening, but flexibility, you know, stability exercises. You know, like how many stories do you hear about, you know, running backs who also did like yoga and Pilates, or even ballet, right? Like for the ability to have, you know, strength and stabilization of those really smaller muscle groups that you don't think about, you know, as much as you think about kind of the big, you know, glamour muscles.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, stretching, definitely staying active, varying up the activity, you know, and just not pushing it too much, you know, like kind of let your body tell you when enough is enough.
Cool. Good
Doc,
advice. Good advice.
That's just fantastic, Doc. We really appreciate it, man.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you guys for having me.
Let's do this again, buddy. All right.
I would love to.
Yeah,
I would love to. You know,
you're a
like we're in a
natural.
little bit of a lull, you know, because NBA finals, you know, wearing down. We got Game 7 coming up. Hockey's over. We're getting ready for training camp, but we're in the throes of baseball season. So
This guy
go
sounds
Phils.
like a producer
You know?
here at the show.
Go Phils.
Got it all.
Go Phils, man.
Well
Great
versed.
stuff,
All right,
man.
guys.
From Rothman
you?
Orthopaedics. We love you, buddy.
All
Thanks,
right, guys.
pal.
Take care.
Great
Have a
meeting you. Have a good one.
Dr. John Luksch.
He was great.
Fantastic.
Yeah, he was
Dr.
awesome.
John. He was
I think he's a sportsman, man.
He's a total
dropped
sportsman.
some- He's dropped
Yeah,
some